So Alabama gets another commitment along the offensive line. It's a big deal, and we're going to talk about it.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day and all that good stuff. And, Jimmy, we put out a quick blurb from you about Mal Waldrep, but we hadn't gone into great detail about it, so let's do that right now as Mal Waldrep commits to University of Alabama from Central Phoenix City, a legacy kid who's always wanted to play for Alabama. Now he's living out his dream, and that's all wonderful stuff. And, look, I think it's a big one.
It's nice. He's kind of a glue guy. I think a great comp for him is Bradley Bozeman. Felt that from the start. Again, all my comps start with size, at the same age. And at the same age, Bozeman was 6'5", 315. Waldrep is 6'5", 325. So he's just 10 pounds difference. And as we know, this particular staff at Alabama under DeBoer and Coach Cap, they like their linemen to be a little more lithe and athletic. So I bet weirdly, this kid, if Mal Waldrep shows up at 325, they're going to try to take some pounds off. I don't think they're going to add anything. I think they're going to work on getting him as quick as he can be while maintaining a weight, over 310. So I think in the end, he's built like Bozeman. Here's another similarity. Bozeman was a high school tackle. Waldrop's a high school tackle. These are guys that grew up both wanting to play for Alabama. Yes, they both got pitches from other places. Mal Waldrep, pretty close maybe to even committing to Clemson. I mean, he's a Clemson guy. You can even see him fitting over there in Dabo's program. But in the end, Alabama decided to press and push and go for a few more offensive linemen than I think they initially signed. Look, we get asked all the time at BOL. This is a common question, Luke, and I bet it's a common question for everybody out there. They ask very early in the process, how many linemen are they going to sign this year? Well, the fact of the matter is that number changes. They don't set it a year in advance and stick by it. And it's not about a decision to add more linemen. It's always about the who. It's not the how many, it's the who. And as this cycle progressed and they realized, you know what, this is a great cycle for linemen. We can't turn these guys away. I think the initial plan was 3 would be great. But the crop was too good. They're getting great responses from great players. And they're like, screw it, we'll take 5. We'll take 5 because we're not going to turn these guys away. So, now Waldrep can be the center. Already got Michael Carroll. He can be a guard. And I think they would take up to 3 more. Now, anything more than 3, they're really pushing it. But they could take up to 3 more. And in terms of a wish list, maybe Micah Debose, maybe Jackson Lloyd, who's coming this weekend. We'll talk about him a lot this week. And Ty Haywood, who may be the number 1 offensive lineman in the country. I'll tell you what, this kid coming in this weekend from New Jersey is a heck of a lineman himself. And we've got a chance at that guy, Malachi Goodman. He's really good. As a matter of fact, when I watched his tape and wrote it up on BOL, I was a little shocked. I mean, I knew he'd be good because, I knew he's kind of a Penn State lean. And then I saw, wow, top 11. He's the number 11 tackle. He must be pretty good. Then you watch the tape and you're like, why is he ranked way back at 11? Yeah. He's a beast. He's really good. So offensive line recruiting is going great. But Waldrep, much like Bradley Bozeman, you got to take this guy. Plus, I think will be a pure center. Now, it may take about a year to learn the spot. So what? You redshirt all these guys anyway. It's never a big deal to redshirt a lineman. They need it. He'll need it. And he can take that year to really get the snap down and learn the nuances of that position, because I think he could play tackle. He'd be a really good guard, but he could be a home run center. Give him a couple years, he could be a home run if he's good with the snap, because he's got the intangibles for it, and he's certainly got the physical ability. He's good. So very excited about Mal Waldrep, not just as a standalone guy, but about him gluing the group together. And what I'm hoping, almost praying, if I prayed about recruiting, is Waldrep at center, Carroll and Debose at guards, Haywood and Jackson Lloyd at tackle. And if you end up missing on one of those guys, then maybe Malachi Goodman, in. Douglas Utu came last weekend. He seemed to like it's a great deal too. So we're just to steal a phrase from my podcast partner Luke Robinson. We're kicking chicken here on the offensive line.
We have a new criterion for centers. You were mentioning that maybe he could play center, and our checklist is: can you snap it to the quarterback? We will work backwards from that.
I almost want to apologize for not, when I've recently been rewatching the season from last year. I mean, it's not like I was blind to it. I knew the snaps were a problem a year ago. Of course I did, even to the point that when we had disastrous snaps, I'm like, well, you could have seen that coming because of how bad the snaps were. But as I rewatched the season and paid particular attention to that, it was worse. It was worse than Jimmy, I felt in real time.
That's so weird that you bring that up, because last year in our very first game, our very first touchdown, I saw a Twitter feed of Jalen Milroe highlights. The snap was bad. He corrals it. He's able to get it off the ground, and he makes a fabulous run. And all we talk about is, man, look at the escapability of Jalen Milroe. Little did we know that was a harbinger of things to come. And now it's so like, oh my God, how did we not see this? Of course, hindsight's 50-50.
It's like we began the season on a bad snap play. We ended the season on a bad snap play.
Yeah. Oh,
and the defining play of the season, 4th and 31, Gravedigger at Auburn, set up by the bad snap. That caused it to be 4th and 31. Isn't that
By the way, I feel like I have to say this every time I screw up a cliche, not even screw up a cliche, like purposely screw up a cliche. I feel like I have to say this. I know it's hindsight's 2020, but Pat Dye once said it was hindsight's 50-50, and I like that better.
I do like it better.
Frankly, I think his is actually more right, because even with hindsight, sometimes we still get it wrong about half the time. So, I
like screwing up cliches is a heck of a lot better than doing the actual cliche, right? No one wants to do a cliche. So if you butcher it, you still can do the cliche, and it's got at least a little bit of humor to it, a little bit. If you say,
I also don't like the way you say cliche. You say cliche, like it's some kind of fancy champagne. Cliche.
It's one of the fancy French words.
Right. I need to tell everybody about Game Time. And no, I'm not going to do the live read part that they tell me to do. All right. I'm going to tell you about Game Time because I love it. It's so much fun. My dog's barking. You can hear every time I bring up Game Time, she barks. Love Game Time. I've used it for everything. I've used it for college basketball, college baseball, college football, NFL, NBA. I've used it for everything. And it's so easy. All you got to do, go download the app, the Game Time app. Everybody will love it. I promise you, you can use it. Anybody can use it. It's awesome. And use code LOCKEDONCollege for your first order. You'll get $20 off at Game Time. That app is so easy. Just go download it. It takes just a couple of clicks. You download it. You get set up. You're ready to rock. And I've never really had a problem. Only had one little hiccup, and I think it was my fault. And I got a hold of somebody at Game Time. They fixed it right away. I don't remember if I texted with them or called them, but I remember they fixed it right away. And I'm telling you, you'll love it. The Game Time app is the best thing going. You need to go check it out right now and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off that first order. Jimmy, thank you, Game Time. But I want to give a shout out very quickly to a guy who stopped by my office yesterday. This was very cool. And I sent you I sent it to you, what he wrote. He wrote a letter addressed to me, but it was for Jimmy and me. And he said some just very cool thing. He dropped the letter off personally and just said, hey, I've been following you guys since Talking Tuscaloosa days. And then when Talking Tuscaloosa went away, I didn't know what to do, but I found y'all were back on Locked On. And we didn't have much of a transition. We should have announced that more. But this is Caleb from Prattville. And Caleb, man, I truly, truly, truly appreciate your doing that and stopping by the office. I thought that was very, very cool. And I wish I'd known you were there. I would have come in and met you. But anyway, appreciate you, bro. You're the best. So, Jimmy, who's next on potential commitment watch? Now, I saw one of our recruits, I can't remember which one it was right off the top of my head, but made mention, hey, I told y'all about Mal Waldrep. Somebody else is coming next week. Who could that be?
Was did Jaden Harmon basically?
It was Jaden Harmon.
That might have been
right.
Jaden Harmon.
It was Jaden Harmon.
Yeah, I mean, I have guesses. I honestly don't know. Sometimes we know. Honestly, don't know. I do think in terms of like what would not surprise me is Dawson Merritt. And trust me, I am a Dawson Merritt groupie of sorts. I'm a Dawson Merritt fan, big time Dawson. And he measured, by the way. You know, one thing about Dawson Merritt, when I watched him play his junior highlight tape, I'm like, how big is that guy? I'm not going to harp on it, but I'm a little worried about how big he might be. Measured in person on campus last week, 6'3", 215. So I love it. I love it. I mean,
So
I was
why
worried.
did you worry about his size? I mean, like,
I thought he would be about 6'3", 200. So he was 15. He was 15 pounds bigger than I thought.
Even if so, he's got a whole other year. Even if he was
Sure.
The 6'3" is what I'm worried about. What I love.
No, I thought he might be a little light, and I just worried about his frame. And again, I wasn't like, oh, he's not going to be good. He's small. I was like, gosh, this guy is so good. You're always looking for knocks. Hey, by the way, when you evaluate players, that's the first thing I can tell you guys. It sounds real cynical, but one of my pro tips about evaluating players, and I get this stuff from coaches and studying it and everything. Coaches don't look for what they are. Coaches look for what they're not. You know, every player is flawed in some way, and you can't sign a kid that's so flawed it becomes a problem, right? They've all got great traits, but what's the drawback here? And with him, I thought maybe he just a little light in the butt, but he actually 6'3", 215. We want him. I think in college, I think for that Wolf spot, an ideal weight for Wolf is about 235 because you do have to take on tackles at the Wolf spot. Every now and then you got to go head to head with the tackle physically. That's a little tough around 210 or 215, but get up to 235, 240. On the other hand, they can't be too heavy because we also want Wolves in pass coverage, right? So, but Dawson Merritt, his skill set is so great. His intangibles are great. Again, dad's an NFL coach. How cool is it, Luke, when you got a son who's a national prospect? He can sign with anyone he wants. Dad coaches for the Kansas City Chiefs, probably the best organization in the NFL. And dad's like, you know where I want you to play, son? University of Alabama. Well, Saban's not there anymore, Dad. No, let's go to Alabama. And I think that's great to have a stamp of approval from the DB coach of the Chiefs. You know, and boy, Dawson plays like a coach's son. He just happens to be uber athletic.
You know, you mentioned that he's, as you say, light in the butt. Again, that's one of your cliches. But I've never met a wolf. I've never met a big ass wolf. So I mean, I'm actually okay with it.
That's a great point.
If you had a wolf with a lot of junk in the trunk, that wolf's not going to make it very long. I mean, wolves got to be nimble and quick and, you know, sneak up on their prey and all that stuff. Like,
they do.
If I saw a wolf with a big butt coming at me, I'd be like, what are you going to do?
Boy, speaking of that, we'll talk about him as the week. As a matter of fact, I might get to him today, but we've been previewing the official visits lately. You know, hey, who's coming this week? What are they like? I'd seen it a few months ago when we started recruiting him, and 1,000 things happen, and I just sort of half forget. But for the first time in about 4 months, I watched the Justin Hill tape again today, the pass rusher from Ohio, who's a borderline 5-star. Oh my goodness,
he's a dude. And then there's another wide receiver from Texas that we're in on thanks to
Lockett.
Yep.
Lockett. Hey, and I bet like half the people listening out there, you probably had Lockett from the Seahawks on your fantasy team in the past 10 years. So here comes Lockett, another wide receiver. No relation, I think, to the Seahawks guy. But he's a really good player, and he was being recruited by Alabama, but it wasn't really happening. But now that Keelan Russell, he's tight with Keelan Russell. He's a Dallas area player like Keelan. And now that Keelan is committed, Keelan gave him a call, and now Lockett wants to come look around. So credit Keelan. Here's the weird part of that, Luke. I don't know if you know this. But, you know, he's coming to Alabama and looking around because Keelan asked him to. But the only official visit he can make it for is the weekend Keelan's going to be off at Elite 11 in California. So Keelan Russell won't be here for the time that Lockett's around. But, hey, that's fine. I mean, we do pretty good with the player hosts. If I know anything about Ryan Williams, we used to have a rule. I don't know if it's still this is back when I knew more stuff from the locker room. But we used to have a rule that they wouldn't make the players be hosts for more than one player. Like, one recruit, like during the recruiting cycle, like we're going to assign you a recruit, but you only got to do it once. I don't know that that's still a rule. I just know if it is, Ryan Williams is going up to him going, hey, I don't care what the rule is. I'll do it every weekend. I mean, he seems to be great at it, and the players really seem to like him. So Ryan seems to be a big part of all the recruiting weekends.
Yeah, Ryan is moving up the charts of best Bammer of all time. I mean, quickly.
It's a Ryan Williams podcast we have here.
It is a Ryan Williams. Locked on
Ryan Williams.
And then Naheem Alford. I mean, look, you and I are in sync on this. We're not predicting him to Alabama by any stretch of the imagination. He just keeps talking about Alabama a lot and posting about Alabama a lot. Does that mean anything? Maybe not.
Another assist to Ryan. I'm not putting 2 and 2 together here. I think he's pretty locked in to Ohio State. To use that, I think he really is or was. But who's posting a lot about Alabama? And I don't follow her on Twitter, but I'm going to start. Naeem Alford's mom has been posting up a Twitter storm about Alabama. I'm wondering if mom, is like, wait a minute, this is 45 minutes down the road. And I got to pack 3 meals just to get to Columbus, Ohio. Could be that mom might be liking the idea of the son being 45 minutes down the road and not 5 states north.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope that's the case because he is awesome, and I would love to have him. And
it's 4 states. I'll get letters. Yeah, I know it's Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio. Okay, 4 states.
Well, first of all, I've driven to Columbus, Ohio more times than I can count because I have 3 children up there. So, yeah, I know all about I know all the good exits. I know the good bathrooms. I know which way to go if I want to hit that casino. And
really,
yeah, oh yeah.
Where's that?
There's a casino. It's right. It's okay. So you get into Louisville, and then you make a left on whatever going towards St. Louis.
I've been to Louisville. Yeah, I've been to Louisville.
Caesars.
Caesars in Louisville? Is it in Louisville
anymore? They change so often, but yeah.
Is it in Louisville?
No, it's outside of Louisville.
Okay.
It's like it's a little city. It's not even in Kentucky. It's like what's next to Kentucky? Whatever's next to Kentucky. Is it Missouri?
I think Missouri could be on one side. Really, in Indiana.
It's Indiana. It's Indiana.
Okay.
It's not Missouri.
Okay. Indiana's. You definitely get into Indiana north of Kentucky. What's Columbus like? If you were comparing it to an SEC town, what SEC town is Columbus, Ohio most like?
Ooh, that's a good question. Nashville.
Really? Is that big? I guess it is, isn't it?
Columbus is huge.
So it's not really in other words, Tuscaloosa and Auburn are largely the university.
You know what Columbus is to me? It's Birmingham, but bigger. It's
like Birmingham.
It's a college football town, but it's got enough. Like Columbus is sort of the test market for a lot of things, and they apparently had like a huge mafia influence for a long time because it was sort of like halfway between going to New York, then getting out west and doing to Vegas or whatever, and like a lot of people would travel through Ohio that way or something. There's something about all that.
It's a tell for the state of Ohio is a tell for the presidency. We're certainly not locked on politics here, but it is true. I'm somebody out there I'm sure is going to correct this. I think the state of Ohio, whoever Ohio says is going to be president, has been president like every single time but once. I mean, Ohio kind of nails that, and it's a real 50-50 kind of state in terms of, it's a real swing state, literally.
Oh yeah, in a lot of ways, it's a swinging state. Okay, let's take.
No wonder the kids are signing up there.
What?
No wonder the kids are signing up there. You got NIL and swinging.
Oh, look. I'm thinking about moving myself. All right, listen. We're going to take a break. When we come back, some really cool basketball news. All right, Jimmy. So, when the SEC ACC challenge thing, they announced we're going to do that. I think you and I were in sync. Like, they won't put Alabama against Duke or North Carolina. They'll stick us with NC State or something. And again, I hate to say stick us with NC State. By the way, kudos to the Wolfpack. You make the Final Four, men's and women's, in the College World Series. That's pretty awesome. But or stick us with like Miami or something. And again, I'm not trying to shortchange those problems, but we have been doing as well as anybody in the SEC the last 5 years. We deserve to go get the spotlight. Well, they gave us North Carolina at North Carolina. I dig it. I don't care that it's at North Carolina. I think it's awesome. This is another of a long list of incredibly difficult games for Alabama, and I'm here for it. I think it's fantastic. I'm fired up about it, and I love that that's happening. And in fact, I'm so happy about it, I'm not even upset that Auburn goes to Cameron Indoor Stadium to play Duke. I think that's the right thing to do.
Would you play 13 non-conference games, basically, Luke. Would you take today, would you prefer, knowing that the team's good? I mean, we know the team is good. We know it. We know this team is good. Is it more valuable to play a tough schedule and finish 9-4 or build up momentum by just winning all your games and be 13-0 and playing a moderate to easy schedule? You want to be 13-0 or you want to be 9-4 playing a brutal schedule?
Clearly the answer is 9-4, and let me tell you why. I'll listen to a show sometimes coming back from LXC to Birmingham out of Auburn because some of the callers are hilarious to me inadvertently. And they were talking about Auburn playing Duke, and they were like, hey, I'm so thankful Auburn's beefing up their schedule because last year, we played Auburn's schedule was bunk last year. It was terrible. Their toughest non-conference game might have been at Appalachian State. It probably was Baylor at the beginning of the year, but that was a neutral site, all this other stuff. But Appalachian State might have been their second most difficult non-conference game. And that shouldn't happen. Right? I mean, it should have happened pre-Bruce Pearl. It shouldn't happen now.
I agree.
And they're like, yeah, and Auburn had a much better record than Alabama. Won the SEC tournament, they get the 4 seed. Alabama didn't win the SEC, didn't win the tournament, got put out in the first round, but they played a difficult schedule and got a 4 seed, and they got rewarded for it. And guess what? In the tournament, it paid off. And
that's right.
I think it's clear that you're better off playing a difficult schedule and losing some games rather than play a bunch of soup cans and go undefeated. I just think it's clear.
Agree 100%. And I'll go ahead and give you all a preview of this season now. Alabama's non-conference schedule is just ridiculous. It's always been hard under Oates on purpose, but this year it's absurd how tough Alabama's non-conference – absurd. And each time in those games, Alabama comes up just short and loses a close game, and it's 86-80 because you lost on the road at North Carolina. After the game, my reaction is going to be that game made us better in March. While all of y'all are talking about how the team's overrated and Nate can't handle all these egos and we're giving the wrong guys minutes, and y'all are going to be saying all that stuff, I'm going to say that game made us better. We'll be better off in March because of what happened tonight.
No, I'm 100% with you. And on top of this, it's being reported that Alabama's first game in the Las Vegas tournament is going to be against Houston. Now, again, I'm here for it. I love the matchup. I kind of wish that one why don't they save that game for potentially later down the road?
Yeah, it feels like a championship. That feels like a championship game of that tournament, doesn't it?
It feels like you could have done Bama Notre Dame, which, again, I'm not trying to talk out of both sides of my mouth. Notre Dame hadn't been very good, but you build up to the championship, and Alabama's got plenty of other great games on the slate. Or start out with Bama Rutgers. Rutgers got like 2 of the top 4 players in this class. By the way,
they lost Cliff Amore, and they're still good. They lost Cliff Amore.
That would have been a good matchup.
And they still think they're going to be good.
Yeah.
That's how good Rutgers has it going. By the way, that's a pretty good football team this fall, too.
And they got a top 20 class that they're working on right now.
Rutgers is not a sleeper to win the Big Ten. That's never going to happen. But in terms of hey, you want a sleeper that's going to win 7, maybe 8 games, being a decent bowl, Rutgers. And just at Greg Schiano, he doesn't seem to be a good coach except at Rutgers. He's got that figured out.
Sorry, I muted because my daughter's got some company over here and they're trying to dance around my podcast.
It's a different podcast.
Welcome to Locked On Bad Parenting. All right, so that's going to do it for today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.